Indus Valley drainage system. Thousands of years ago, cities in the Indus Valley ran water under their streets through sealed sewer systems. They were cleaner than London would be for another 2,000 years. These drains were fully covered, built to standardized sizes, and integrated into a carefully planned urban grid. Evidence suggests intergenerational maintenance, with some drains including natural filtration and sediment traps. The Harappans built citywide sewage networks with precise slopes, covering slabs and waste separation. Waste flowed efficiently, reducing disease. Every block, every street was engineered for hygiene and functionality. This was a society where artisans and engineering castes maintained the system across generations. Knowledge was passed down orally, reinforced through practice, apprenticeship, and constant upkeep. Then disruption came. Climate shifts, changing river patterns, and migration destabilized these cities. The Aryan migration coincided with the collapse of major urban centers. The drainage networks stopped receiving care. Skilled artisans dispersed or vanished. How were drains built with uniform slope over kilometers without standard tools? Did regional trade networks support specialized artisans? Was the knowledge already in decline before the migration? Archaeology confirms advanced engineering, but no technical manuals survive. The method was embedded in practice, not written instruction. As cities were abandoned, the transmission of knowledge broke completely. Oral systems of apprenticeship could not survive the collapse. No one remained to maintain, repair, or teach the designs. The very skills that created these marvels disappeared with the people who wielded them. The drainage system fell into disrepair. Over centuries, the innovation was forgotten, leaving only ruins and traces in archaeological records. Civilization shifted to new governance and technology paradigms that did not value or understand the Harappan engineering ethos. Could urban engineering of this caliber exist elsewhere without leaving behind the knowledge to replicate it? How many civilizations have quietly mastered technologies that vanish when societal continuity breaks? Ancient Greek fire. A fleet of enemy ships drifts across the Black Sea. Suddenly, fire leaps across the waves, swallowing timber and sail alike. Nothing extinguishes it. Not water, not sand. The Byzantines call it Greek fire. Imagine a weapon that burns on water. Centuries later, historians still cannot fully understand how it worked. The recipe was secret, passed only orally, destroyed along with the last of the siphonary. Some argue it represents chemistry centuries ahead of its time. If a weapon this advanced disappeared within decades, what else did Byzantium's collapse erase from human knowledge? Greek fire was no simple torch. It was a combustible liquid or semi-liquid projected via a siphon, designed for naval defense. Operating it required coordinated crews who mastered mixing, storage, and firing safely. One mistake could ignite your own ship. The technology belonged to an elite class: naval engineers, military guilds, and palace workshops. Only a handful of records hint at ingredients. Attempts to replicate it in later centuries often produced dangerous failures, proving how specialized the knowledge truly was. The fall of Constantinople destroyed these guilds. The last surviving experts were scattered, enslaved, or killed. Knowledge that had defended an empire vanished with them. Repeated sieges, internal political strife, and invasions disrupted training and production. Oral secrecy meant no manual survived. Imperial archives were looted or destroyed. Chroniclers recorded the weapon's fearsome effect but deliberately omitted formulas. Modern chemists speculate mixtures may have included petroleum, quicklime, or sulfur. Why could no other Mediterranean power replicate it even decades later? What risks did surviving siphonari face if they shared knowledge? Could Byzantine secret chemistry have influenced later medieval pyrotechnics? Production of Greek fire ceased after the guilds were destroyed or enslaved. The last known use occurs during the 12th to 13th centuries. Afterwards, only legends remain. The technical knowledge vanished quietly alongside Byzantine naval dominance. Could one handwritten formula or one surviving workshop have preserved centuries of chemical warfare knowledge? Or did this expertise die because it was held by too few hands, too tightly guarded? Even today, Greek fire sparks fascination and speculation. It is a reminder that technology depends on people, networks, and secrecy. Without them, even the deadliest weapon can be lost to time. Nabatean water cisterns. Petra's rose-red cliffs hid reservoirs that could breathe. The city could store water for years in the desert heat. And yet, after Roman conquest, these cisterns fell silent. Imagine a city in the heart of the desert, surviving on clever engineering alone. Porous reservoirs absorbed moisture. Special plaster repaired minor leaks naturally. Petra thrived where others would perish. The Nabateans built a hydraulic system combining cisterns, channels, and waterproof plaster. It maintained a reliable water supply, vital for life in the desert. Every drop mattered. Every design decision ensured survival. This knowledge was culturally sacred. Engineers, guilds, and priest architects safeguarded the techniques. Their expertise was practical, but also ritualized. Passing it on required training, mentorship, and time. Then the Romans arrived. They brought standardization. Large-scale infrastructure, uniform methods, local adaptations like Petra's self-sealing plaster were ignored. The inciting incident was quiet. Local engineering traditions gradually declined. Water shortages began contributing to the city's slow decline. Roman administration shifted attention away from microengineering. Workshops and artisan lineages faded. The chemical knowledge behind self-repairing plaster disappeared. Reservoirs built to adapt to the desert could no longer maintain themselves. Archaeological surveys reveal the difference. Surviving Nabatean cisterns outperform Roman-built structures nearby. How did the Nabateans achieve self-repairing plaster chemically? Why did the Romans, with all their resources, fail to adopt it? Could the failure of Petra's water system have accelerated the city's abandonment? Eventually, Roman standardization replaced local innovation. Cisterns fell into disrepair. Water infrastructure became unreliable. The city, once a marvel of desert engineering, depended on a set of skills and knowledge networks that were lost forever. The Damascus steel. Blacksmiths in Damascus call it steel like no other. This is Damascus steel. Its secret lay in nanostructured steel with carbide nanotubes, giving blades extraordinary sharpness and flexibility. Wootz ingots imported from India were essential. When Mongol invasion shattered trade routes, the supply of this rare raw material vanished. The technology involved carefully processing Wootz steel into Damascus blades. The combination of forging, thermal treatment, and precise alloying produced edges that could cut through iron while remaining resilient under stress. Every step required skill, observation, and hands-on expertise. Societies in India and the Middle East had guilds controlling this knowledge. Artisans passed it through apprenticeship, often in secrecy. Loss of trade routes meant access to essential ores was interrupted. Workshops could no longer produce steel at the same quality. Mongol invasions destroyed both the supply chain and the workshops themselves. Political turmoil scattered artisans and interrupted transmission of their methods. Surviving blades display microstructures modern metallurgy struggles to replicate. Every piece tells a story of lost precision. Why did surviving texts fail to fully describe the process? Could scarcity of ore or changing climate have compounded the loss? How did some blades retain superior properties even when original methods were no longer practiced? With trade disrupted and artisans gone, Damascus steel effectively vanished. European metallurgists would later attempt imitations, but none matched the originals. The secret, tied to geography, materials, and human skill, was irretrievably lost. The Baghdad battery. An unremarkable clay jar containing copper, iron, and acid residue was opened in a museum basement. When a researcher connects the pieces, a tiny surge of current flickers through the wires, and history shudders. If this jar produced electricity 2,000 years ago, why did no tradition of electrical study follow it? This object works as a low-voltage cell when reconstructed. It was found in a region known for advanced metallurgical and alchemical workshops. There are no surviving texts describing its purpose. And yet, the device appears precisely assembled, deliberate, and not accidental. The jar itself is deceptively simple. A ceramic vessel holds an asphalt stopper, a copper cylinder, and an iron rod. Combined with an acidic or fermented liquid, these components generate a measurable electrical current. Why were multiple jars found in similar configurations rather than a single odd specimen? This technology existed within the Parthian or early Sasanian cultural sphere. Skilled metalworkers, jewelers, and alchemists operated in workshops where ritual, craft, and early chemistry merged. Artisans may have been experimenting with practical applications of electricity, perhaps for electroplating or small-scale chemical reactions. Discovery of electroplated artifacts nearby hints at the possibility, though scholars still debate the interpretation. If these jars helped artisans with electroplating, why aren't similar tools mentioned in later Islamic scientific works, which otherwise preserved vast knowledge? Historians continue to ask, were these jars simple ritual objects with accidental electrical properties, early scientific tools lost to political upheaval, or genuine galvanic cells intended for experimentation? The region experienced rapid regime changes. Parthians replaced by Sasanians, followed by the Islamic conquests. Each transition disrupted workshops. Guilds dissolved. Ritual traditions were replaced or suppressed. Knowledge chains ended. Families who had inherited these secrets fled or were absorbed into new social structures. Looting and repurposing of metal artifacts erased vital contextual clues. Even if artisans understood electricity, their writings prioritized metaphor over method. Alchemical texts from the era often focused on symbolic meaning rather than detailed procedure. Some jars show residue consistent with acids, others don't. Some artifacts display unusually smooth metal finishes, possibly from electrochemical deposition or simply from grinding. Why do some reconstructed jars generate significantly more current than others? Was there quality control, or did each workshop experiment independently? Scholars debate relentlessly. Some argue the jars stored sacred scrolls. Others suggest medicinal or ritual fluids. Yet the electrochemical interpretation remains plausible. If these devices weren't for electrical use, why are they built with such consistent electrical potential across multiple finds? Could these early experiments have been the start of electrical science that vanished before it could flourish? As dynasties shifted, the artisan guilds associated with these jars disappeared. Workshops carrying niche experiments were no longer maintained. Political upheavals pushed surviving craftspeople into new cultural systems with different priorities. After the 3rd century CE, no device resembling the Baghdad battery appears in the archaeological record. The idea, if it ever existed, simply stops. How does a potential breakthrough vanish without comment from the scientific communities that later thrived in the same region? Electrochemical principles appear again only much later in Europe, yet there is no direct lineage connecting them to the ancient Near East. This tiny jar may have contained a spark of early electricity. It may have powered small electrochemical experiments, and yet its knowledge chain fractured under the pressures of conquest, political change, and cultural upheaval. A single, fragile network of artisans vanished, taking secrets with them, leaving only tantalizing fragments. The Roman self-healing concrete, a wall built nearly 2,000 years ago, stands firm along a volcanic coastline that eats modern concrete alive in a decade. Engineers test its core and watch uneasily as cracks seal themselves. If this wasn't magic, then what else could it be? The Romans had a concrete unlike any other. They combined volcanic ash, lime, and aggregate to create a mixture capable of binding and self-repairing microcracks. When exposed to seawater, aluminum-rich minerals reacted with the lime, forming rare crystalline structures that stitched fractures together. Some coastal structures show astonishing repair behavior. Why did only certain sites display such resilience? Rome depended on maritime expansion, massive harbors, and long-range supply chains. Their marine concrete was guarded by specialized workshops, often linked to quarries around Pozzuoli. Knowledge passed from master builders to apprentices, never written in standardized manuals. As the empire decentralized, these workshops lost state funding. Quarries were disrupted, contracts ended, engineer guilds scattered. Only a handful of late empire sites show evidence of the advanced mix, while others used cheaper substitutes. Why was this knowledge so fragile? Historians still debate whether the most advanced formula was intentionally restricted. Some suggest proportions were never widely taught. The Romans might have safeguarded their strongest recipes for state megaprojects, leaving others to guess at the mix. When the Western Empire fragmented, the knowledge fragmented with it. Long-distance quarry supply chains collapsed. No single successor state maintained the engineering bureaucracy needed to circulate the formula. Early medieval builders, surrounded by Roman ruins, never fully reverse-engineered the mix. Why not? Northern invasions cut off southern extraction zones. The Eastern Empire shifted priorities toward new building materials. Treatises on construction were copied selectively, often incompletely. Loss of centralized projects meant no quality control. Skilled laborers scattered or joined new societies that had no need for advanced marine works. Some quarries became inaccessible due to political borders and warfare. Written sources mentioned ingredients but not proportions. What if proportions, not the raw materials, were the true secret? And what if those proportions were never fully written down? Archaeology provides tantalizing clues. Some late Roman structures show inconsistent mixes, as if workshops guessed at ratios. Others used inferior ash sources, hinting at shortages or confusion. The strongest formulas appear clustered in specific eras. If the mix was common knowledge, why was it concentrated in only a few decades? Eventually, the technology quietly disappears. Harbor building under imperial guidance halts. Workshops dependent on state contracts dissolve. Pozzolana quarries fall into disuse. By the early medieval period, complex marine concrete is simply not practiced. The loss was gradual, almost imperceptible. Local builders switched to simpler lime mortars. The last engineers trained under the imperial system die without passing their knowledge at scale. How does a material capable of lasting millennia vanish when societies desperately need durable structures? Even contradictions reveal the story's fragility. Some ruins decades later show mixes more advanced than others. Certain workshops maintain better proportions than neighboring ones. Written sources reference materials but never explain why. Scholars are left puzzling over patterns, gaps, and anomalies. Curiosity lingers. Could one surviving manual or a single workshop have preserved the technique? Or was the knowledge already too scattered, too dependent on human networks to survive the empire's collapse? The Romans built structures to defy time, yet their most advanced concrete vanished faster than any stone could crumble. They mastered a chemistry centuries ahead of its era, and left behind only fragments for us to rediscover, puzzle over, and admire. The Mayan lenses in optical tech. A small quartz lens magnifies grains of sand. It can focus sunlight, possibly even start fires. These lenses were polished to a degree comparable to 17th century Europe. They could magnify, concentrate sunlight, and perhaps even serve in astronomical observation. Only a handful survive today, remnants of knowledge largely erased by the Spanish conquest. The technology involved high-polished quartz lenses, some carefully shaped to focus light. The function may have ranged from magnification to ritualistic or experimental purposes. Each lens required skill, patience, and careful understanding of material properties. Mayan artisans, astronomers, and priests held this knowledge. Workshops were small and highly specialized. Techniques were passed through hands-on training without written manuals. Then the conquest came. Spanish forces systematically destroyed Mayan artifacts, libraries, and instruments. What survived were only fragments hinting at a broader optical tradition. Oral knowledge and specialized workshops vanished. How polished were these lenses really? Could they have formed part of astronomical instruments? Were there additional lenses used in experiments that never survived the destruction? Archaeologists debate every detail, but much is speculation. As the last workshops dissolved, the craft became nearly irretrievable. Later European optical developments occurred centuries afterward, without influence from the Americas. The Mayan optical mastery was effectively lost.